Hey, I'm Tanya H. Franklin, and welcome to Tricks My Dog Taught Me, a podcast for lighthearted and occasional deep conversations with family and friends revolving around my journey as a dog mom to my little guy, Zach the Toy Poodle, which prompted me to self publish my first book, Shit My Dog Taught Me, where I share some of my insights through poetry and weekly life lessons. So, for today's episode, it's a special one. Often we look to experts for life advice, but sometimes the most profound insights come from the next generation. So, joining me today is someone I've watched grow up from a caring young boy into an ambitious young man, my nephew, Jalen Purnell. And he's navigating his mid 20s in a world that never hits the pause button. So today we're talking about the art of patience and the grit required to chase goals and how to know when it's finally your time to strike with week 15's poem Sit and Wait as the basis. So welcome, Jay. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you. Thank you for
You're
having me.
welcome. Absolutely. So to start off our conversation, I'm going to share the poem with you and the listeners so that you have some context.
Mhm.
All right. Sit and wait. Sit. Wait. Be patient is what we're told to do, but it's trying to conform when all we want is to pursue. So, relatively short poem, but sit and wait are words that Zach certainly is familiar with. He usually listens, but I think
Mhm.
we live in a world where instant gratification and that hustle culture, it can make it difficult to just sit and wait. So I'm wondering, how do you figure out what's worth waiting for versus when you need to just get going right now to reach certain goals and things you want to do in life?
So, can you elaborate on that, please?
So, like for instance, whether it's pursuing a job, I know you mentioned to me in previous conversations that you're interested in maybe doing some things with music.
Mhm.
So how do you determine for yourself, you know what? I'm going to just wait this out. We're going to see how things are going to play out. And how do you determine when, you know what? I want to go after this goal right now. I'm not going to wait any longer.
Hmm. Well, it usually depends on the situation for the most part. Excuse me. Well, there are times where I kind of have to sit and wait stuff out. Like if I want to put this out now, then, I have to wait for progress and everything. If I'm actually doing it, then I'm going to go at it. That's the whole deal here. It's kind of a process to it. You want to wait it out. You want to like see if you can get any progress here, and then you're gonna have to move on to the next one. I see advice online like all the time. Like everybody's saying the same thing. You want to be extremely consistent with it, which means you have to go like back and forth all the time. You're gonna have to keep going, but there's no stopping or anything like that. You're gonna have to keep going no matter what. And it's the only way that you'll see any actual progress and people will actually start taking you seriously.
I get that, but I'm wondering, could that I mean, at least I'm thinking about for myself because I didn't have social media, of course, when I was younger, but even just people around me, saying,
Hmm.
"Go after it, keep going." And while on one hand, I think that's excellent advice, do you think it's possible, not you necessarily, but a person could potentially get burnt out because if they keep going, and they don't ever stop and wait. And when I say stop and wait, I don't mean that you stop pursuing the goal necessarily, but perhaps there's something you might need to process, or you might say, I need to pivot here. So let me slow down for a moment before I make my next move.
You mean like taking a break?
Yes.
Well, yes. Well, in my case, definitely for sure. Because
Hmm.
there are times where, I like to switch around, stuff like that. Like, the thing about it is that unfortunately, I'm only one person. So it's like occasionally I might find myself having a burnout. So I might do something else. Like, I don't just do music, I might actually just write. Or read, I might do this, I might do that because I don't like to pigeonhole myself to one specific thing. So I like to always keep busy. I like to always kind of like just move around, because it keeps life interesting. I don't want to just be like lackadaisical or anything like that. I want to actually do this. And if it gets tiring, then I'll switch to something else. And then, it just keeps everything interesting.
Definitely. I definitely know because I'm someone who, since I was younger, like even your age, that I was
Hmm.
always going after this and going after that. And I will say that there were times, and that's the main reason I asked you that question, is just in reflecting back on myself, where
Hmm.
I couldn't get myself to just wait. It was like, I got to get to the next thing. I got to do this. I got to do that. And like I said, with social media now, wasn't prevalent when I was in my 20s, but
Hmm.
there's times when it just pushes you to get moving. And on one hand, I think that's awesome. But on the other hand, it makes me think about how if you see all of these people going after, or at least most people are going to present, not all, but most people are going to present their best selves
Hmm.
on social media, and it might give the impression, wow, this is the highlight reel of their life. It seems like everybody is here and I'm still there. So how do say, you know what? Social media or even looking at reels and what people post, there's some
Right.
benefits to that, but I'm not going to let that deter me for what I'm doing or to make me feel like I'm behind schedule. Like, so how is that something that is an issue for you, or maybe it's not?
It is an issue for me because there are times where me specifically, I find social media to be, I think it's an amazing platform, but it's also a distraction for me. So, and sometimes it's like mentally, it can take its toll. So every year I have a plan for myself where at least 1 month, I try to steer clear from social media and then force myself to work on other things. Like I don't go on Twitter, I don't go on Instagram. I just focus myself to do other things. Like I put myself down on my work or I focus on reading. I try to do other things and force myself to just really experience life. And it works. When I got back, I felt like a completely different person. And I didn't really feel like overwhelmed or anything like that because when you're on social media you have like all these voices and everything, so you don't really feel overwhelmed when you're actually taking your break, and once you come back you just feel different. I felt different, at least.
Mhm. Oh, yeah, definitely, and I would say for myself, I will restrict myself where oftentimes I'm on social media where I might be posting about something I did related to fitness or something related to this podcast, or maybe there's
Hmm.
somewhere I've gone, but a lot of times when I do those posts or when I'm on there scrolling, it's often associated with when I'm walking or I'm on the treadmill at the gym or I'm walking waiting for Quinn to get out of school or something like that. So then it's not the first thing that I look for in the morning or it's the last
Hmm.
thing that I'm looking at in the evening. And it's certainly, I will say, it helps me stay focused with my goals and things that I want to do in life. But definitely, when I think about, I didn't have to worry about that in my 20s, but there were still people who might have said, you haven't graduated from here yet. Or if I noticed someone who did, or, oh, you haven't done this yet. Oh, you don't have an apartment. Oh, you don't have this. Like there's always someone who's going to point out something I
Yeah.
don't have yet. And I will say there were times when I would allow it to consume me, or it wasn't even that someone pointed anything out. I may have had certain goals for myself. Oh, I want to have my first apartment by the time I'm this age. Oh, I want to have a job I consider a career by that age. And I think sometimes when we put that much pressure on ourselves that we feel like we don't have time to sit and wait, especially if we have these hard deadlines. And I think that it's good to have deadlines for ourselves to keep us motivated and keep us going, but not to the point where it might stress us out though. So I'm wondering how do you stay patient, like where you have all of these different interests and activities and vocations that you want to pursue? How do you stay patient with your process of pursuing them?
Honestly, I guess you could say I kind of like have a bit of a one-track mind. So when it comes to me being patient, like I said before, I'm just one person, so I can't do everything. So I try to just put my mind towards one thing at a time and trying to like be patient with it. The thing about it is that everything is just a process. So there are times where I can be a little impatient with it because I want this to be like perfect now, but it's part of the process. So I try try to like do whatever I can on my end because let's say for music, for example, the thing about me is that I like edit everything together. I'm kind of like I won't over edit something. And honestly, even when the song it sounds fine, I think maybe it can use a little bit of this, like use a little bit of that because when I'm outside or something like that, it's like I feel inspired. It's not like I'm literally like here like every day just doing something day to day. Every time I'm outside like just doing me, I'm just feeling inspired. Maybe I can add a little bit of this. Maybe I can add a little bit of that, you know? So it just depends for the most part, you
Mhm.
know?
Well, sounds like we have a little bit of that in common, Jay, because I'm the person who constantly revisits and says, I think I can improve this. I think I can improve that. And that's wonderful. I think that's a gift and a curse because
Mm,
then you find that you're constantly going at it and battling with
yep.
yourself. And
Yep.
so, and someone else is like, it's perfect. And you're like, wait a minute. I know I can improve it even more.
See?
So yes, I'm definitely guilty of doing that myself. And I would even say like I'm thinking back in my 20s, there were times when I felt like it was a sprint, meaning that I'm going as fast as I can. I got to get to these goals. And now that I'm looking back, I think some of the goals I had, some were a little unrealistic for myself. And when I say unrealistic, not that they were unattainable, but I
Mhm.
think I was putting myself in a position to be stressed and to be overwhelmed because I'm looking at what the status quo is supposed to be and where I'm supposed to be according to standards and
Yeah.
allowing that to consume me. I should have a house by this time. I should be here by this time. Even prior to marrying Uncle Sean, it was like, I should be married by this time. And everything is going to happen when it's supposed to
Mhm.
happen. But I really do think sometimes, just in looking back, if I would have enjoyed certain moments instead of enjoying those moments, sitting and waiting in those moments. And when I say sitting and waiting, more so just a matter of being patient, not that I'm not thinking about my moves or not that I'm not strategizing, but that I'm enjoying that moment that I'm in instead of always in pursue mode of what I
Mhm.
need to do. So do you, when you look at where you are right now, do you feel like you're in a sprint or do you feel like you're in a marathon or maybe even a series of short laps where you go, then you stop. You go, then you stop.
Me personally, I feel like I'm in a marathon. Like, I always feel like I'm just running. I'm trying to run as fast as I can in order to get to this point where I want to be at. Whether it's like trying to find a place for myself, trying to make sure that everything is okay for myself, financially speaking, or, trying to like, I don't know. It's like, I don't know. It's like I'm trying to like, I'm always feeling like at my age, I should be like doing this or I should be doing that.
So what do
Yeah.
you feel like you should be doing right now?
Honestly, right now, well, I really kind of really want to be working on getting my place together. So there's that. I really want to just have my own space to just call like basically my own sanctuary. Like when it comes to my music, when it comes to writing, when it comes to I don't know, even just relaxing or just listening to music. I don't really have to be like too stressed or anything like that because I'm in my own space. Yeah, it's more just that and trying to like get everything together mentally and physically.
Yes, for sure. And I would even say just the idea of saying you want your own space that comes with the sitting and waiting and investigating and
Yes.
saving and all of that. And because I always think about some people who I know from when I was younger and they just went on out there and they got the first thing they found. And then they found all of these problems with the place where they're living, or they didn't realize this amenity wasn't included, or they didn't survey the area and they realized, wait a minute, there's not a lot of parking around here. So
Mm,
sometimes sitting and waiting, even with what you want in life currently, could be beneficial because then you're like, you know what? let me weigh out pros and cons. Do I have enough money saved? What's on the market right now? And then that's something that I think will benefit you long term as opposed to, because I think sometimes you can look around and you might say, well, geez, it seems like all of my friends or people I know might have something, or maybe they don't. It's a different situation, I think, in 2026.
Mm-hmm.
But certainly, I think that this is an opportunity for you to say, all right, let me investigate and get everything right. And so I would say for myself, I found that a lot of it deals with timing, and the timing, it may never be perfect,
Right.
but it's going to be the right timing for you. So in my 20s and present day, something that I would often do is look at signs. And they might be literal signs and sometimes figurative, where it's just something that's weighing on me. And I feel like it's a sign to push me in a certain direction. And that sign, even with writing the book that's associated with this podcast, it started where I was just walking Zach as a puppy.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought about, wow, there's so many experiences that I'm having with him that make me think about life lessons. And I would share some of them with Quinn and share some of them with my best friend Michelle and with Uncle Sean. And then I said, why don't I write about this? And at first it was going to just be about inspiration. And then I just thought about, someone asked me and they said, have you done poetry in a while? I remember you used to do spoken word, you used to do slams and things of that nature. And I'm like, well, I haven't done any slams in a while or done spoken word in a while. But when they said that, it made me think. And I was like, huh, why don't I do some poems associated with my experiences with Zach? And I can have that coupled with
Mm-hmm.
different inspirational moments. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like people bringing up poetry or me just walking Zach, that these were signs that presented themselves for me to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to pursue this and we'll see what happens. So I'm wondering, have you had any signs or green lights in your life that are telling you, you know what? I think it's time to stop planning and start moving.
Stop playing, start moving. I honestly cannot think of a situation where I haven't been planning. And I always try to plan everything out because that's part of my mentality. I try not to like just go at it. I try to like think everything through, because that's how I was taught. That's how I was raised.
Mhm. Mhm. Good, good. And so, so for me, something I think about with planning is that a lot of times with goals that I'm planning for, there's going to be some sacrifices that are made. I remember making sacrifices even when I selected what college that I was going to go to. I know that Nana wanted us to, your grandma wanted us to stay close by. While I did want to go somewhere else, I
Mm-hmm.
decided that I will make that sacrifice and I'm going to make sure to stay local, even with job hunts. And I think about certain sacrifices that I made in positions that I held initially in getting to where I wanted to get to. And it makes me think about that idea of sit and wait, because if I just went out there and grabbed any and everything, instead of waiting for what I wanted. And now, mind you, I did get certain positions where I knew they didn't necessarily line up with what I was trying to do, but I said, this is going to be a placeholder right now. So in this moment, like you mentioned, planning, while I'm planning my next move, while I'm seeing what's out there, I'm going to need to make this sacrifice and I'm going to need to have this position because I have to pay to live. Especially once I had my own apartment, I had to think about those things. So I'm just, even with my sleep schedule, I might make certain sacrifices. I know some people will laugh at me, like, what time do you wake? You wake up at 3 in the morning. Are you serious? And so, but those are sacrifices that I choose to make. I get so much done early on in the day that it makes me feel more productive. So I'm wondering, is there anything for you where you say, you know what, there's some sacrifices that I've been making so that I can get where I want to get to?
Well, financially speaking, I have been making a lot of sacrifices towards that. Like for example, the vacation, the cruise that we're supposed to go on. I've been putting money aside for that. And I also have been sacrificing for other things like my other needs, for example. Like when it comes to food, paying bills, stuff like that, like my insurance and everything. Like I try to make sure I have money for that and everything. There are times where I have to like spare money that I was going to use for other things, like when I'm out on dates, for example. Like sometimes I have to use money for my car. Because that's very important because I need my car for work and I need my car to get around. There are times where I have to sacrifice stuff for that, even without actively thinking about it, but I know I have to because that's important. I have to put aside this stuff just so I can like live, so I things could be like easier for me still.
Mhm. Good, good. Yeah, and I mean, I think that it's good you're already on that path because there are some 20-something-year-olds who are not, and they will blow through all their money
Oh, I know.
and not be able to provide for themselves, and then they're looking all pitiful, like, "I don't know what Imma do." Yeah, so it's good that you already know that sometimes we gotta make those sacrifices even if we don't want to. So, yes,
Mm,
definitely. And so, I mean, even when talking about sacrifices and patience, you've seen me and certainly your mom work for different things that we want. And so, as an observer of watching us with patience, I would like to know, do you think that our generation got it right in terms of just looking at how you saw us growing up when you were younger? You might have seen us working and doing different things. Or do you say, you know what? I like the way it was done back then, or maybe even the way that things are done now in terms of making those sacrifices and exercising patience?
honestly, that's a very complicated question
I
because
know.
the thing about it, with every generation, everybody is
Yes.
different. So it's
Mhm.
like everybody kind of has like different perspectives. They all came up differently. I, for example, kind of just lucked up because I had you guys to show me everything that was going on, how to do
Mhm.
this, how to do that, so it's kind of like complicated. I can honestly say it just depends on the individual rather than the specific generation because every generation is different. Everybody has different come ups. And it's like, the thing about it from what I'm seeing is that it all gets easier or it all gets harder. It depends on the
Mm.
individual and what their come up story is, how they are, and how they are mentally. I can honestly just say that I just feel like you guys do inspire me a lot because of the work ethic you guys have and the way you guys just have that hunger, because you want this for yourself or you want to accomplish this. So it's like I also see that hunger within myself. Honestly, I try to always just have this like mentality where I always think that things will get better and things will come together eventually and I can be able to have the stuff that you guys have on my own terms.
I like that. I like that. And I think, yes, I did present you with quite a complex question. But I'm thinking about because the main reason I asked you that question is because I see so many people who are in their 20s,
Mhm.
late teens, or even early 30s where they might constantly job hop or there's not
Yes.
really a focus. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. You want what you want. But I think sometimes it's done in such a way where something else will just come along and the focus may not necessarily be there. And even in observing some of my students, unfortunately, not all of them,
Mhm.
but there seems to be this "you owe me" mentality where I don't have to do anything. I'm gonna just sit back and everything is gonna be handed to me. And I
Mm.
know that was not the case when I was younger. And I know that you certainly aren't that way, but it's certainly something that I've observed with a lot of 20-something-year-olds as seeing them in my classroom, where there's some who are really hard workers, but then there's some who just do just enough. And that translates into not just my classroom, but sometimes in life. And then there's this level of impatience. I should be here now. And then I'll ask, well, what have you done? Well, I don't have to do this. And they can't explain to me anything that they've done, but they expect it to, to all happen for them right now. And so, yes. And so I even think about myself, like with the pressure. I remember feeling a lot of pressure. And like I said, this is before the days of social media,
Mhm.
not even just pressure in my but pressure in being Black, pressure in being a woman, pressure in being a young Black woman, and feeling like I needed to be successful as a representative, not just of my race and gender, but of my family, and wanting my mom, your Nana, to be proud and say, okay, you've done us proud. And I'm happy that you are pursuing your dreams and that I can tell people I know how wonderful my daughter is
Mhm.
doing in life. And so I think about for you, you're a young Black man. Do you feel any extra pressure to succeed in life, or to do it quickly?
Absolutely, because there are times where I didn't really know what I wanted to do per se, because it was just like everything kind of just came so quickly. I didn't really have a chance to just breathe or just take a break, you know? Everything was kind of just forced on me, and it's like by the time I realized what I wanted to do, it had been too late because the financial backing, it was like it was all used up and everything. So I kind of had to do all that on my own. So, with the transitional period and everything, it was difficult and I had to pivot. So I had to focus more on my job and focus more on getting my money up in order to like do anything that I really want to do and try to like get everything together on my own because there was just like so much pressure. And I wanted to see if I could have at least some type of success quick. When I was young, I really wanted to just have like, I don't know, like some type of success. I had dreams, ambitions to try and see if I could be like a homeowner or something like that, and during my late 20s, or try to see if I can already basically like just have like a stable lifestyle together, like have a well-paying job, I have a house to myself, and I have a car in the driveway, stuff like that. Because of what I see outside a lot, it's like I always count myself lucky that I actually have these type of resources, but I took it for granted a little bit because I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do, and I didn't exactly know like how to go about this and how to actually tell the people that wanted me to do this that I didn't actually want to do this. It kind of got forced on me, and I kind of just went with it, you know?
Yeah, and I think that that certainly can be tough. I had a student in my class. The first day, we always go around and share a little bit about yourself. And a lot of times they may say what their major is. And this one student says, I'm an accounting major. I was like, oh, accounting, that's cool. And he says, well, that's what my parents want me to be. And I said, well, what do you want to be? And he says, I want to be what my parents. And I said, and I laughed, and the class laughed. And I said, so is that really what you want to do? And he says, well, it's the only way they're going to pay. And I said, well, and I said, of course, I don't want you to defy your parents. But I said, if you have other interests, you might want to see if there's different resources and
Mhm.
things of that nature. Because I said, too often do I see people who they're unhappy or they're pursuing something and it's not for them. And maybe they'll come to love it, but maybe not. And I think that that type of pressure, it can be a lot. Even I know some students who will say that they're international students and their parents expect them to be maybe two professions, a doctor or a lawyer. That's it.
Yeah.
And so when you're had that type of pressure put on you, and not only that, there is no time to sit and wait. You got to get moving. And I think sometimes if you're moving so much, you don't get a chance to process what's happening. And to process, is this something that I really, really want to do? And you mentioned that, it being too late. And I just want to circle back to that. It's not too late. You're still in your 20s. It may be, it may not be on your timeline and what you said. Well, by this, because I'm speaking to you as auntie, but also as someone reflecting back in my 20s, because I did look at my timeline.
Mhm.
And I can share with you that my timeline was off by the time I transferred to my 4-year college. I started off at Community College of Philadelphia
Mhm.
and then transferred to Rosemont. But something that I did is I was a little nervous to go to this other school. And I found myself taking all of these extra courses. And so when I graduated from community college, I wound up having not one, but 2 degrees. And the reason I had 2 is because I had so many credits. So
Wow.
I had so many credits. And so even when I transferred to my 4-year college, lost a good amount of credits, which meant I had to make up a year
Mm,
because of the credits that I lost. And so there was a part of me that was kicking myself like, I can't believe this. All of my friends, they'll be finished at this point. Now, mind you, this is me saying all of my friends, but all of my friends weren't even in college and
mhm,
everyone's on different journeys. But that was
mhm,
me saying, all of these people, they're doing this, that, and the other, and I'm not here yet. But I'm here to tell you that as long as you're doing what you want to do and it's something that's positive, obviously you're not out hurting people or anything, but it's positive and you're saying, you know what, this is something I'm going to pursue. My hope is that it will yield some money because I got to pay for different things in life, but to feel good about what you're doing, whether that happens next year, 2 years from now, or even if you're like, oh, geez, I'm 30 and I'm waiting still, that
mhm.
it is still something that is doable. And I will also point out, sorry if I'm sounding preachy, but something else I would just point out is right now, it's very difficult for anyone to purchase a home unless they're making some insane amount of money or willing to have some crazy mortgage payment and move in a bunch of people because you're like, I can't
Right.
afford all this on my own. So so yeah, so I would say in that regard, that type of pressure, it's understandable. And I know even though I'm sharing this with you and you're on your own journey, it's not necessarily going to change your perspective, but maybe you'll recall this conversation. You'll get older and say, "Yeah, that's right, I remember." So
Mhm.
and so I'm just thinking like for me, when having this and, going off a little bit on that tangent, at times I will say that the pressure, it would impact my mental health or my decision making.
Mhm.
And I would say, I should be here, I should be there, I should have a car by this time. And in looking back on those moments, I'd certainly stressed over certain situations that didn't require as much energy as I gave them. So I'm wondering, when you think about that extra pressure, has it ever impacted you, your mental health, or even just your decision making?
Absolutely, because I'm always thinking about long term. I'm always thinking about I should be here, I should be there, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. Honestly, it's like sometimes it has impacted my mental health. And at times, the only reason why I haven't exactly, quote unquote, crashed or anything like that is because I pivoted into other things that could calm my mind. I tried to focus on other things like whether it's writing, reading, or even just like if I'm just like watching a TV show that can help like ease my mind, stuff like that. Maybe I didn't really pass a test or anything like that that I was supposed to take. So even when it comes to stuff like that, I haven't exactly like crashed yet because I learned to pivot.
All right. Now, you've mentioned writing a few times. Do you mind sharing what type of writing you do?
What type of writing I do? I write all over. It's really a lot. So I used to write a bunch of biographies and I used to edit a lot on the wiki fandom a lot when I was a kid, like when I would say around 14, 15 years old. So I used to do a lot of that. And I like to offer my 2 cents, some trivia here and there, or maybe just edit like a personality trait like, hey, this person does this or this person does that. I like to offer like some commentary when it comes to stuff like that and some like suggestions. So I used to do all that but the problem was everybody also had their own rules and their own 2 cents. So I stopped and I started doing it personally in my personal time on Google Docs a lot, just writing character biographies, stuff like that all the time. It was just a pastime for me, even though most people would never see it, I will still see it and it's still my
Mhm.
work. So that's something that I would just do for fun all the time. And it actually enhanced my writing and my skills a little bit. Like psychologically, it also allows me to read people. So it allows me to just tap into just being like articulate, like just trying to sound professional, concise. I just try to write everything down and really just world build. And it's something that I enjoy doing because I don't know, it's just one of my nerdy traits, I guess. And I also enjoyed reading. So I got back into reading books and stuff like that. Like before I used to hate reading, but now I really enjoy it more than anything else because it really does offer a lot of commentary and it offers a lot of perspectives because you never know. I like to read a lot, whether it's books or on the internet. So that translated well into my writing. And I even started writing my own book because it was before I didn't know how I could go about stuff like this, but I decided it might be time to see if I could try again, see if I could like go into this perspective because I read more books enough to understand like the formula and everything. So I try to see like what I can do about with that. So yeah, that's what I mean when I write a lot. I write a lot about different things, you know, characters, certain situations, and I can take inspiration from other podcasts. I also have a blog. I manage a blog. I think mentioned that to you before. I also manage
Yes.
a blog, and it's many different things, but writing is definitely, obviously, the most prevalent of them. I do book reviews. I do stuff on certain cartoons, certain real life situations like music, stuff like that. Whatever's on my mind, I'm just gonna write it down in my notes app, and I'm gonna get it all down, and then I'm going to check the grammar and everything because I'm not perfect, so I make mistakes. So,
Hmm.
and then try to like post it on my blog, and then like very few people will see it, but at the same time, to me, it's a special accomplishment because I'm leaving my mark, and eventually, I might wind up getting more people to actually see how articulate I am with this writing and everything because a lot of people do enjoy it, you know.
It's awesome. That's awesome. I love. Thank you for sharing that with me, Jay. And
Hmm.
so I think that you mentioned about writing and reading, and it makes me think about conversations. And so there's
Hmm.
so many conversations that I would love to have with my 18-year-old self or even my 20-something-year-old self about not sweating the small stuff and just going after certain dreams that I might have that I might just be hesitant
Hmm.
about, and maybe even just not being so hard on myself if certain aspirations don't work out the way that I expect them to. So I'm wondering, you're not too far off, but if you could talk to your 18-year-old self, knowing what you know now about timing, about patience, and all of that, what would you tell him about relaxing or just sitting and waiting?
Well, I would probably tell them that it probably would be best if you could just take a gap, if you could just take a break and just work on yourself. It's okay to just stop and slow down real quick because you have people that care about you. Like it's not going to impact you, it's not going to negatively impact you. So it's okay to just take a break and slow down real quick. Just take a gap and figure out what you want. I didn't really figure out what I want until I got deep into school. So it's like once I got deep into that and I got deep into more life experiences, that's when I figured out exactly what I wanted for myself in life. So it's like I wish I could tell him that you can still just slow down a little bit and just take a breather. And people will have to like respect you for that because it's also important. Like that's also a part of life. You're gonna have to take a break. You're gonna have to slow down a little bit in order to like not suffer a burnout, you know?
Yes, in order to keep going, sometimes we have to slow down. Sometimes we have to take a break. We can't just keep going and going and going. So you definitely hit that on the head. So I want to shift gears a little, and I might seem patient in my 40s. And to
Hmm.
some people observing, I would say a lot of people observing, they probably thought I was fairly patient in my 20s as well, because I wouldn't often vocalize if something was wearing on me or if I was overly concerned about something like I mentioned with
Hmm.
that extra year with college, but there's still so many things in life that I can be impatient about. I mean, it might even just be something as simple as I grew up when there was still dial-up. And so there was no Wi-Fi. And so even just waiting for something to load, I think I've gotten spoiled with Wi-Fi. I'm like, why is it taking so long? And it's only taken like 5 seconds or something like
Ha!
that. Or maybe it's just traffic and I'm just like, why are they taking so long? And so I think that there are times when I might be a little impatient. And I will even say that even in being impatient, I still try my best to exercise patience with other people, though. But I'm wondering if there's something that you find yourself notoriously impatient about in your daily life. And it doesn't have to be something where it's grand. It might be something that's just, like small, like I mentioned with Wi-Fi.
Let's see. Well, definitely with the traffic and everything, as someone who drives, especially someone who drives in Philly, I'm always like trying to get where I need to go as quick as possible. So it's like occasionally I can drive, like, I can be a little intense when it comes to my driving, and it like comes to the point where I'm like, come on, all the traffic and everything, the lights, and it's like, it's annoying. And that's how I feel, like extremely impatient when it comes to stuff like that. It might like pertain to my job and everything, because occasionally I might be a little impatient with that because the workload is slowing down. And there's times where I get a little bored, so I kind of want to just like do some work and everything. So the workload might not be there. So I'm like getting impatient about that. And yeah, it's stuff like that. Or it might even be when I'm waiting for my food because I have somewhere I want to be. Like I'm outside, sometimes I get my food from outside before going in for work, before clocking in for work. And I'm waiting for them, but the thing is there's like a process to it, so it takes a minute. So I'm checking my watch, and it's like what, 4:20, 4:15. I clock in at 4:30, and I'm like, can y'all hurry up please, because I need to go back to clock in. So by the time I get my food, I'm like power walking back to work. So yeah, those are some examples.
Yeah, I could definitely understand that, like, when you're waiting for food. I know one of my pet peeves is that I don't really purchase fast food that
Hmm.
frequently, but I remember this one time when I did way back when, probably in my 20s.
Hmm.
And matter of fact, I remember where it was. It was McDonald's, and I haven't purchased food from McDonald's in years, but I remember I was ordering a sausage McMuffin with cheese, the meal, and the person did not tell me. Usually, and I remember because I worked at McDonald's, not this location, it was a different one.
Hmm.
And I would always tell a person if we're waiting on hash browns, if we're waiting on something to be prepared, and I would tell them it's going to be about a 5 to 10 minute wait. Is that okay? And then they would say yes or no. This
Hmm.
person told me nothing, and I'm waiting, and I knew my bus was coming because at the time I wasn't driving, and where's my food? And so I go, pardon me, about how much longer? Oh, we just put the hash browns down. And I'm like, I mean, I didn't say it to them, but in my head, I'm like, what? So, yeah, so I definitely understand that. And I wound up I actually just lost my money on it because I said, I
Mm,
can't wait any longer because I had already waited like 10 minutes. And I'm like, my
mm.
bus is coming. And I just said, well, I guess they're just going to keep my food because I had to get going. But yeah, so that definitely, I can understand that feeling impatient with that.
Yep.
And even just with certain goals, I think about certain fitness goals and things I have and
Mhm,
the impatience. I will say I've gotten much better at that. I know that it was difficult for me to remain patient when I was attempting to do my first pull up and
yes.
the length of time it took to just get that first one. And so just trying to be patient in that moment. Yes. And I find that a lot of times what helps me be patient is surrounding myself with patient people or at least people who are motivating. And so I'm not sure if that's an experience for you that if you do have to be patient, if you have someone who has a calming spirit or they're motivating you, don't worry about it. Everything's going to work out. You got it. That a lot of times that helps for me. So yes, but something I'm going to ask is also, some dogs, they might sit and wait for a while, like I
Mhm.
mentioned with Zach, but others not so much. So here's my last question for fun. If you were a dog, what breed would you be and why?
What breed would I be and why? Well, having done some research, um, Probably a Siberian Husky, something like that, because their whole vibe, like, they're usually seen as, dogs that kinda, like, just help pull sleds and stuff like that. From the way their fur looks, from, like, the way they present themselves, it can be, like, mysterious, but energetic. They're, like, hard to read, you know? You just don't know what you're gonna expect out of them. And if I actually own a dog, it probably would be that. I don't usually like big dogs, but I
Mhm.
might make an exception with that one.
We have a Siberian Husky that lives around the corner from us. Beautiful blue
Mhm.
eyes.
Right.
Yes, yes. So I'm wondering, you said you would be a Siberian Husky. What dog breed do you think I would be and why?
Honestly, unfortunately, I haven't given it that much thought yet. I wanna say golden retriever because
Wow.
you
Go on.
well, honestly, you always seem I'm not gonna lie to you, they're always seen as the perfect dogs, and it's like you always seem like, the one person that's always kinda just like the golden girl, You always seem like you're the special child, They always seem like the very special breed of dogs, And it's like you always seem like that type of person. They seem pretty high energetic, they seem kind, polite even, and you kind of like exhibit like all those type of traits.
Well, thank you so much, Jay. I appreciate that. I laughed because that's what Gwen said. She said golden retriever. Quite a few people have said golden retriever. So at least I know I am consistent.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's not, a dog where they're extremely aggressive or anything like that. So I will take golden retriever all day long. So yes, thank you, Jay. So I mean, I think in our I say in our early 20s, but I'm no longer in my earlier mid-20s, but still, I would like to say it's kind of like a waiting room for the rest of your life.
Mhm.
So this is where you're figuring things out, what moves you're going to make, and all of that. So I would say don't worry if you don't have all the answers yet, because you have an amazing perspective and it's going to
Mhm.
serve you well in the future, Jay. So I definitely thank you for sharing some of your insight with me
Mhm.
today. And to you, the listener, it's okay if you need to sit and wait sometimes, but I hope that you don't wait on sharing this podcast episode with your friends and family. And while you're at it, please follow me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube at Tricks My Dog Taught Me. Until
Okay.
next time, when I get into week 16's poem, Size Does Not Matter. Here's something to ponder inspired by my little guy, Zach the toy poodle.
Mhm.
Keep moving or sit and wait. Each approach can lead to progress when applied at the appropriate moments. Take care, and I'll see you next week.